Hayeyeye baba yangu we, mama yangu we. Hayeyeye dada yangu we, kaka yangu we. Dada we, jione mwenyewe we.
What's up, family? Welcome to the Love Bravely podcast, and thank you for joining us. My name is Matre, and this episode features pieces of an audio recording from a recent Zoom event. The event was a premiere of our new Love Bravely song, Department Store, and shares more about the story of the song while also diving deeper into an idea I've been calling a church with no walls. The possibility of a sacred space created through popular musical styles. The recording also features a conversation with producer and musician Rick Ellis, who produced Department Store. To stay tuned with Love Bravely and to support this work, you can check us out at patreon.com/lovebravely. Thank you. Let's go.
Binadamu sisi tuko na hamu, tafsiri nyingi hazimsumbui mwenye akili. Toke enzi za mababu zetu binadamu walioishi enzi zile.
Before we jump into the recording of this online event, I just wanted to share a few things. This event, the Department Store premiere and conversation, was held on Zoom on February 23rd, just a few days before we released the song on February 28th. So you'll hear in the recording that I talk about that release date that already passed, and just wanted to clarify that Department Store is out now, and you can listen everywhere, streaming on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, wherever you listen. And also just wanted to thank everyone who came through for this event. It was a really inspiring gathering, and we had people from a lot of different places in the world come through and join us. So thank you all. And for those of you listening on the podcast, thank you for tuning in, and hope you enjoy as well. So I just want to start by giving a little bit of context for why I felt inspired to invite us to come together in this kind of online event. This song, Department Store, that we'll be sharing today has been a really deep journey for me. It's been a presence in my life for the past several years, and I'll share a little bit more about that. And for me, it's really been medicine. The song has been a big part of my own healing and growth process. And so as I've thought about how do I share something that has felt so sacred to my own process and invite people into an experience with it, one of the things that kept coming was to invite people to come together and listen to the song together, which is something I've never done before. And I even tried to resist that because I felt kind of uncomfortable and unsure about it. But I ended up feeling like that feeling kept coming back enough that I wanted to listen to it. And sometimes for me, I have this feeling like songs take on a life of their own. And like the spirit of the song has its own presence. And when I've listened to that, this song sort of keeps tugging at my sleeve and asking me to share it in certain ways. And the interesting thing is sometimes I'll get the feeling of what the song is asking for, but not necessarily the information about why it's asking for it. So why we're all gathered here in this way today, I think is something that I'm hoping we can hold a space to figure out a bit together. What is the song asking for, and what is music, the spirit of music, asking for in the time that we're living in? How can the spirit of music support a depth of growth and transformation in a time of a lot of challenge? And this morning, as I thought about getting on this call, a story was really present with me that I want to share that also gives a little bit of context about this whole Love Bravely project and about the Department Store song, and why it may be that the song was tugging at my sleeve and asking insistently for me to invite people together to give a listen to the song together. So the story that was coming to mind was about the great American soul singer Sam Cooke. And before Sam Cooke was a soul singer, and before the name soul music existed as a genre, Sam Cooke was a gospel singer. And as a young man, he sang in a gospel group called the Soul Stirrers, Stirrers, the Soul Stirrers. And the Soul Stirrers got really well known for singing in church and holding a profound space for what music can be to support people's deep inner life and spiritual life and soul life. And they started to tour around to different churches and became known as a great gospel group. And at a certain point in this trajectory, Sam Cooke, for a number of different reasons, felt inspired to start making music that wasn't explicitly church music anymore. So he felt inspired to go and to record music that would be more in a popular music space, what we could call popular music, no longer just about being in church. And from what I understand of the story, when that happened, he got a lot of pushback from the church. And he was called, like a sellout or selling out on that true gospel music, um, or that he was, betraying somehow the sacred space of that gospel music. And that story is really common for a lot of the early artists who were the founders of these different musical genres, where the story was they had left the church, right? Sam Cooke has left the church. And when I've read about it, that's the kind of language that I've heard get used. And then there's a piece of the story that's sort of the next step that has really been interesting for me. And I can use myself as a personal example for this story. Sam Cooke starts recording what we would call popular music. People say he's left the church. The church itself, many of them stop wanting to have anything to do with them, with Sam Cooke. And he starts recording these songs that become really popular. 50 years later, I'm not doing the exact math, but something like that, I listen and I'm moved speaking about it because it's been a very powerful experience. 50 years later, I listen to A Change Is Gonna Come. And I have an experience that I would describe as a transformative soul and spirit experience. I have the experience listening to A Change Is Gonna Come of a sacred space. And I have the experience that we could say might normally be associated with being in a religious space like a church, but I'm not in church. I'm sitting in my car. I'm washing dishes, listening to A Change Is Gonna Come. I'm in my bedroom. I'm with a group of friends and we turn it on our stereo system. And a different kind of space opens. And even though the music is no longer called church music or gospel music, we experience a sacred space. And this story about Sam Cooke isn't just a story about Sam Cooke, it's actually the story of all of American popular music. All of the styles of music that have come to be really well known, not just in the United States, but have defined global popular music. Soul music, rock and roll, jazz, country music, hip hop. These music styles all have roots in sacred spaces. And thinking about my experiences with A Change Is Gonna Come, Yeah, it's really interesting. I didn't know I would be so moved every time I even speak about the song, because there's something in the spirit moving through it that I can continue to feel. And every time I've thought about it, I've continued to have this feeling that maybe Sam Cooke didn't leave the church, but maybe the church expanded. Maybe Dolly Parton, who started, with church music, didn't leave the church, but the church expanded. John Coltrane, who started in church, didn't leave the church, but the church expanded. As a picture, as an idea, as a possibility. Yeah, I'm not saying this is some definitive theory, but I've started thinking about this idea of what I've been calling a church with no walls, where the sacred experience becomes available to anyone and to everyone anywhere, where we can be in our car or listening to headphones on the subway or on the bus and have an experience that opens up a sacred space. So, this is one of the stories that's guiding the Love Bravely project. And another piece of it is that I started finding myself going to church through listening to hip hop at a young age, and then was lucky enough that my parents and my brother and my uncle and the context that I was in exposed me to other music, folk music, rock music, jazz music, the blues. And with all of these, I had this experience of a sacred space. And then later, I began to get invited into spaces that we would actually define more explicitly as sacred spaces, ritual spaces, ceremony spaces. I was invited into traditional Lakota sweat lodges with a dear friend and mentor, Miguel Rivera. And in a sweat lodge, the songs are the prayers. And each round of the sweat lodge, there are songs that are sung that aren't for listening to something sound good. They are a certain kind of spiritual technology where the music itself is used to invite in a presence that can support our healing and well-being, where the songs themselves are opening a space where a different kind of understanding about what it means to be a human being becomes more accessible. And I was invited to join rituals with a West African healer named Malidoma Somé from what is today Burkina Faso, from the Dagara people, and also Salbonfu Somé, also from the Dagara people. And the same thing, the music is used as an extremely well-developed tool to support the most meaningful steps in a person's life and in a community's life. And so on the one side, I have my experiences in these ceremonial spaces. And on the other side, I have my experiences doing dishes and listening to Sam Cooke, riding in my car and listening to John Coltrane. And the Love Bravely project, I think for me, I'm seeing more and more, is about recognizing that maybe these two aren't as separate as we think. And not only that, but maybe they're actually part of the same thing. That the same essential spirit of healing, transformation, of unifying, of transcending the day-to-day way of thinking and feeling, and accessing a deeper experience of what it means to be alive and what's possible as human beings, that essential spirit is moving through all of these different musical spaces and forms. And Department Store has been a particularly strong example of the coming together of the prayer and the popular music space, which we don't identify explicitly as a sacred space, but which many of us, so many of us have experienced as a sacred space. The coming together of these seemingly two worlds, of the ceremony and bumping a dope song in your car. And the song department store started to come to me some years ago when I was in a really difficult space. One of the most challenging spaces that I've ever been in my life. And when I was in this space, the pain that I was feeling inwardly and confusion that I was experiencing were so strong and so deep that it was hard to feel like I had a sense of a way forward or what a way forward could even look like because I was just so consumed by what I was experiencing being so difficult. And during this time, I remember I was living in an apartment in mid-city LA, a one-bedroom apartment, living on my own. And I would sit on this couch in my apartment and I would try to hold a space to ask for support, to ask for help in whatever form that might come in. And I would hold a meditation space and sort of a contemplation space and a prayer space. And a lot happened in that space, and it was really difficult. But one of the things that started to happen was that the first words of this music and the melody of this music started to come. And it's one of the most clear examples, maybe the strongest of any song that I've ever worked with, that I've ever written, of a feeling that something was coming to help, that support was coming. And I was deeply grateful. And so I kept listening to that, and more words came, and more melody came. And in a way that I've never experienced with any other song that I've written, for several years, I had all the lyrics and the melody of this song, but I just sang it myself almost on a daily basis. It became a part of my daily meditation, my daily prayer, and my daily way of trying to invite medicine for myself and to find a way through. And so for a couple years, I just sang this song alone, and I didn't know if it would be something that I would ever release as a song that I would share with other people or that I would record. I didn't know if that was the right thing to do. And I didn't know exactly what that step would look like from prayer, from medicine, from sort of life-saving medicine to a recorded song in a studio that then comes into this whole world of streaming on Spotify and algorithms and all of these things. How do we do that? How do we go from prayer to Spotify? Right? So it's not saying that in any way that's bad, but it is saying I'm in the question of how we invite a song to continue to do its work in a way that is true to that sacred space, but is shared in this popular space of a church with no walls. So I want to share this song. And I'll just say that the steps of making the song have been a continuous process of going from the original prayer and medicine to then feeling like, okay, maybe this actually is telling me it needs to be shared a few years later. And then thinking, who could carry a prayer into musical form? And thinking of my friend Peter Walden, who I knew through the context of ceremonial spaces, and he helped write the music together with me. And this beautiful guitar part that is the backpinning of the whole song. And then who can produce this? Who can hold that prayer in a sacred way and flesh it all the way out? And I thought of my dear friend Rick Ellis, who I'm just coming to me, met in a sweat lodge, the same sweat lodge I was talking about. But I never thought about that when I invited Rick to work on the song. But something in me knew that Rick could take up the invitation. And I said to Rick, how do we keep that through line of the prayer? And I know that you can do that. I know that that's the work you do. And so he helped create this recording that is called Department Store and tells a story that, I'm excited to share with all of you. All right. Thank you so much, family. This is Department Store.
What if this life I got in me really ain't just for me? And what if this loss that I'm feeling is really everything I need? What if this life I got in me really ain't just for me? And what if this pain that I'm feeling is really trying to help me see this ain't you? What you think you are, it ain't true, this ain't you. It's gonna kill you trying to hold on to this ain't you. Happiness can't be consumed, this ain't you. No, it's something that you came to do. My grandfather owned a department store in a place not far from here. I never met him, but from what I'm told, one thing's become clear. He was good at selling, ran a self-made business, but those ain't the stories I hear. 'Cause all he sold could not move his soul like the things that he gave and shared. Ooh. And when the neighborhood kids came in, ooh, times were rough and he would talk to them. Ooh. Reminding them of the power they hold. Ooh. He loved them, didn't matter what he sold. At least that's what I'm told. What if this life I got in me really ain't just for me? And what if this loss that I'm feeling is really everything I need? What if this life I got in me really ain't just for me? And what if this pain that I'm feeling is really trying to help me see this ain't you? What you think you are, it ain't true, this ain't you. It's gonna kill you trying to hold on to this ain't you. Happiness can't be consumed, this ain't you. No, it's something that you came to do. My grandfather owned a department store in a place not far from here. I never met him, but he's always with me, and I hear his voice so clear. You're good at singing, run a self-made business, but pain don't disappear. 'Cause the stage you rock cannot give you as much as the other people you put there. Ooh. And when those kids didn't have enough, my grandfather didn't hold back his love. He went to visit their family home. ain't you. What you think you are, it ain't true, this ain't you. It's gonna kill you trying to hold on to, this ain't you. Happiness can't be pursued, this ain't you. No, it's something that you came to do, this ain't you. What you think you are, it ain't true, this ain't you. It's gonna kill you trying to hold on to, this ain't you. Happiness can't be consumed, this ain't you. No, it's something that you came to do.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. This space of silence that comes after sharing the song, whether it's sharing a song live or like we just did here, recorded, I always want to leave room for that silence because I think sometimes it's the most powerful part of the whole thing. And it's interesting right now because I feel like because we're on a Zoom event, I should keep talking. Particularly if there are people who aren't watching the video and just hearing the audio, because they'll be like, what's going on? It's completely silent. But maybe I'll just say, well, just take a moment and let it be silent for a moment, and then we'll see where we go from there. Thank you. As we took that moment, I feel like a deeper understanding came to me, another step in the understanding of why the song maybe kept poking at me and pulling at my sleeve and saying, let's get some people together to listen. As we were sitting in that silent space, I had this really strong feeling of the heart space of each person who's on this call right now. And this connection between the different people who are together in this space, wherever we may be in the world. And it kind of took another step in my understanding of this picture of a church with no walls. So thank you for joining and being a part of that. So I just want to share one thing, and then I want to invite Rick and invite him to speak about his process. Whatever the invitation is that this song is making to me, it's been radical. It's a radical invitation. And I feel the importance of it probably more deeply than ever any song I've worked with. And I feel the challenge of it really deeply. Whatever it's asking me to do, there's something in me that's resisting it. To take this step further. This ain't you. What you think you are, it ain't true. It's going to kill you trying to hold on to. Happiness can't be pursued. No, it's something that you came to do. And that piece of turning from happiness as the pursuit of something outside of myself that I don't yet have, that there's something outside of me that I need to get to be able to be well and whole and happy, and to turn that to a different understanding that there is something I already have, that we each already have, that for me really comes through this heart space, and that actually the meaningfulness of my life isn't about trying to get something, but about how can I share that to support the person next to me. And that transition feels so deeply important and meaningful. And actually, that transition has been the medicine to begin to look at life in that different way. And there's something that happens in that turning that feels really liberating and makes me aware that part of what creates the inner suffering is that desire to get something. And that a transformation begins to happen when I shift towards recognizing so much support is available and coming to me, and each of us has within us medicine that we are actually here to share with other people and with the world around us. And that step is what the invitation has felt like from this song. So I want to open it up, Rick, if there's anything you'd like to share. I have some particular questions I'd like to ask you, Rick, about your process, but also if there's anything you'd like to just start by sharing. And again, just to reiterate with everyone here that Rick really sculpted the sound of what you just heard. And he was willing to take up this task of saying, I'm going to take this prayerful sound and try to bring it into a form where the prayer stays at the center, but we can put it in a form that we can offer to share with more people. And I'm so grateful, really grateful to Rick for this song, this recording, and this collaboration. So, Rick, if there's anything you'd like to share, and then we can see where the conversation goes.
Okay. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thank you.
It's great to hear. I didn't know a lot of the story of your process with the song. I knew some of it. It was great to hear the full depth of it and really connect with how we met and how we came together. And we share a similar path in that, which was really neat to hear in there. You know, I won't go into it a lot, but it just came up so much that, you know, I left my home at the time in Venice Beach when I was like 19, 20 to go hitchhike around the country. And my pursuit was to find God and Bob Dylan. And it was, you know, how do I wed those two things together, rock and roll and a spiritual pursuit?
Mm.
And that's in a big way what my life has been about, you know, trying to figure that out. And so it's great to hear you talk about your process. I could relate to it deeply.
Yeah.
So appreciated that.
Yeah.
Yeah. This song, it's the first line where it totally gets me. You know, what if this life I have in me isn't just for me? That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, that it's a beacon to something bigger than ourselves. And that's why I wanted to be involved in the song.
Mm.
Yeah, I felt like it was delivering something that was speaking to some way about transcendence and something about there's something just so true in the way you said that's profound and beautiful.
Thank you, Rick. It's really inspiring hearing what you shared about setting out on that road trip, and that your mission, your goal was to find God and Bob Dylan. And it's so interesting how these threads and pieces come together as we get to know each other over years and years. Rick and I met, like I said, in a sweat lodge ceremony over 10 years ago, didn't even know that the other did music. And then eventually we were talking outside of the lodge one day, either before going in or after coming out, and realized we both did music and decided to get together just to jam. And Rick has produced a lot of my music over the last several years and a lot of the Love Bravely songs. And yet and you had talked about that trip to me before, Rick, hitchhiking. It's a big part of your biography and you shared about it, but I'd never heard you frame it that way. And when you said that your life in a lot of ways has been about how to bring those two together, I'm realizing that more and more about my life. It's such a huge part of my life, this marriage between the sacred ceremonial space and the popular music space, which maybe is a sacred ceremonial space of its own. And so I'm really grateful to have you joining on this journey with this song and with the Love Bravely project. And the question that I've been interested in asking is, because I'm trying to explore it, and I'm interested in hearing more about you and how your process is with it. When I shared this song with you for the first time, I shared like a really rough demo that Peter Walden and I had made. And so it was maybe my voice and Peter playing this guitar part and probably not too much more. Maybe he had put some cello on it. And I remember the way that I introduced it to you was saying, Rick, you know, this song has been medicine for me and it's been a prayer. How do we flesh it out and make it something that more people can listen to and yet not lose touch with that through line, that prayer? And throughout the process, we would talk about it and you would say, you know, I'm keeping that at the forefront. I'm keeping that at the center. And I'm interested in hearing what your process is like because, you know, in the process of this song, you've actually done in an outward physical way what you were saying your life is about. You've brought the prayer together with the rock and roll, you know, with the folk music, with the soul music, whatever it may be. So yeah, interested to hear what that process is like for you and how you work with it.
It's interesting, Matt, how so many of these threads about us in our collaboration we didn't speak about, but we found each other in any way. You know, we didn't know we had all the depth of the ways we look at things, the way they would intertwine and work together. What exactly was the question?
What is your process like going from prayer to produced song?
It's interesting to even think about it because I don't know that I'm consciously. I mean, I am in some levels, but I don't know that I make a distinction between the prayer part and the into the world part. I mean, I do and I don't. I think there's a contradiction in there for me. I think the way that we and I worked on this song was I just kept coming back to your vocal as the arrowhead, you know, the leading point of the song, and making sure it wasn't obscured by the music, but supported by it. That was kind of the process. But yeah, so the process for me, keeping prayer, I just kept it in terms of can they feel the heart of this guy who's singing the song, which was you. You know, could we keep the inflections and the nuance of your voice and the presence of your intention at the forefront is what it kept coming back to, you know, because you can put loud guitars and all these instruments around it. And it was just a process of sculpting around that and making sure you were leading it. And I think it changes as the music bed's there, and then your voice presence has a little bit of a different perspective, by the ways we color the environment behind it. So
Yeah.
but we worked on that together. It was a meticulous process for both of us because we paid attention to so many details.
Yeah.
And it makes sense hearing you talk about the song, how it took a long time, this song. We worked on it, then we put it aside and let it sit. And then it kind of came around, and now it's time to unwrap it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Thank you so much, Rick. And thanks for joining today. It means a lot to have you here. I feel like this was something that we really carried together over these past several years. Both this song and this greater sort of exploration of how we bring uh, the rock and roll and the God space together. And yeah, we're getting close to noon here, different times wherever you are, but close to an hour. So I want to try to go towards winding down, and just share another thought that's coming to me, which is I think part of what I'm being invited to do by this song and by all the songs and by the music and the spirit of the music in general is to listen to what the spirit of the music is asking to serve or to support, and trusting that and trying to let go of my own personal preferences or desires of how I want it to be received or seen, or what it's going to make this person or that person think, or any of these things. And that is a gift for me that's coming through these songs, and again, a deep challenge. And I think the challenge is to not have my own personal thing get in the way of the prayer thing. That isn't mine, right? It's not my own personal thing. It's something else. It moves like a current through all of the music that we've talked about, whether it's in the Sweat Lodge or coming through John Coltrane's saxophone. There's something moving through it. And for me, it takes courage because sometimes it asks me to do things that are uncomfortable, to leave the voice more vulnerable somewhere, to perform something before I feel fully ready to perform it, because that voice of that spirit of the music is saying, this is the time. Someone needs to hear this. It doesn't matter if you come off looking good or not. That's not what you're here to do, right? What you're here to do is to be a steward to see if you can share something that could potentially be meaningful for someone else. And Rick, I'm thinking about something. We've talked about Miguel Rivera, who leads the Sweat Lodges. I've mentioned him earlier in this call, and he's been a dear friend and mentor for both of us. And there's something that he says. There are three things that he says that one of his teachers would say to him repeatedly and say to them repeatedly. And one of those things, I may be quoting it a little bit, not exact, but more or less, is don't get in front of the medicine. Man, I'm getting chills as I say it. This has really, I've heard him say it. I've been doing these sweat lodges with Miguel for over 10 years, maybe 15 years. Heard him say it a lot, but just more recently when I've heard him say it, it's really started to come in. And I can't say that my understanding of it is exactly what Miguel's is or his teachers, where it came from. And maybe if Miguel was on the call, he would say something different. But for me, I think that's a big part of what this song is saying to me. Don't get in front of the medicine. the medicine has a life of its own. The spirit that's moving through this music or this art or our lives and our hearts in general, and trying to serve something in support of something collective, something bigger than just myself. That medicine isn't mine to hold on to or to decide how to deliver it in a way that I look good and feel good about the way that I am responded to. Don't get in front of the medicine. Don't make it about what I want for the medicine to be. And I think that that can be one of the challenges of our contemporary music space, our contemporary music space, which has been so strongly defined by music industry. There's so much getting in front of the medicine. There's so much of you see the artist and their image and the flashing lights before anything else. And again, not in any way knocking the artist and the image and the flashing lights. It's all serve different things. And I'm trying to be mindful of how do I practice being within that popular music context, but trying to not get in front of the medicine. You know, and I don't know what's going to be the right thing, but I'm trying to have the guiding thing be tuning in to that, to the movement of that spirit or that current or that presence.
My grandfather owned a department store in a place not far from here. I never met him, but he's always with me, and I hear his voice so clear. You're good at singing, run a self-made business, but pain don't disappear. Cause the stage you rock cannot give you as much as the other people you put there. Ooh. And when those kids didn't have enough, my grandfather didn't hold back his love.
Rick, is there any last thing you'd like to say before I just say some practical things and close up?
It's nice to see Papa Sawaya there. He came into the camera for a minute. Hi.
Yeah, we've got the whole Sawaya family. And actually, thank you, Rick, for saying that, because the story really did come through my dad's father, my grandfather. And there's a really strong stream of lineage coming through this song, particularly father and grandfather and great-grandfather, a patrilineal lineage.
Where was the department store? Your dad did dad hang out in this department store when you were a child?
Dad, if you want to unmute yourself, you can unmute and answer that question. He doesn't want to unmute. So I'll answer for him and say, yeah, actually my dad, you can correct me if I'm wrong with gestures, Dad, but if I understand correctly, my dad lived above the department store until he was 5 years old. About. Yeah, Dad? And
What part of town was it?
And it was in Watts. So the department store was in Watts, and my dad and his siblings lived there. Those who were born lived there until he was around 5, and then he worked there throughout his teenage life, and all of his siblings worked there. And it was run by my grandfather, Wade, and my would have been my great uncle, no, my dad's uncle, Nick, and my grandmother Rose, and Nick's wife, my dad's aunt, and all of the children, cousins and brothers and sisters who ran the department store together in Watts. Sawaya's department store.
Is there an abandoned building there? Did it get renovated into something else? What's there now?
The building, it actually burnt down in the Watts riots, which would have been 1965. I'm not sure if that's right. Are my parents nodding? Yeah, 1965. Yeah, it was one of several buildings that burnt down during that. Yeah. So that's another story and part of our family story, which I've written about too
Yeah.
in other songs. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks, Rick. And I just want to close by thanking all of the musicians who played on this song. Peter David Walden, who wrote the song together with me, plays the guitar and the cello, several different guitars and cello. And Leslie Kernikin, dear friend, who sings so beautifully and really brings this kind of heart presence forward so strongly in the song, and is a really amazing musician and singer-songwriter. You can check out her work, Leslie Kernikin, Kernochan. And Evan Christo, who's also a great singer-songwriter too, but on this song plays drums. Really badass drummer and a beautiful friend. And our friend Blaze Moriarty, who plays bass on the song, who's been playing on my music since I was a teenager, who's played on all kinds of releases since we were like 15 years old. So thank you, Blaze. And we will be releasing Department Store this coming Friday, February 28th. And then the church will go to the space of a church with no walls. The church will go into the Spotify space, and we'll continue to try to work with it in that way. All right, y'all. Love you all. Look forward to connecting again next time. I think we'll keep doing these events for different song releases. So the way to stay tuned is through our Substack page. Thank you, everybody. Look forward to building more with all of you. Much love. Peace.
What's up, everyone? Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. It's been really inspiring to share Department Store and to start hearing your feedback about the song. So thank you all for listening, and to keep checking it out outside of this podcast. You can find Department Store streaming in this church with no walls we've been talking about, often found these days through places like Spotify and Apple Music. You can also find all of Love Bravely's music as well as articles and other podcast episodes on our Substack page at lovebravely.substack.com. And to support this work, we invite you to join our Patreon community at patreon.com/lovebravely. And your contributions really do make a huge difference, y'all. This is community-supported work, and you can join as a monthly supporter and get all the work we're doing coming straight to your inbox. So thank you, and we really appreciate you tuning in. Look forward to connecting with you next time. And in the meantime, we'll be doing our best to love bravely. Peace.